Okay, so I welcome you everyone to this interesting webinar series. The talk is going to be delivered by Nisar A. Memon, who has a vast experience across private and public sectors in key leadership roles as a CEO, board, member, chairman, senator, and federal minister. He had a 30 years career with IBM in Europe, Middle East, and Pakistan. After leading IBM Pakistan for 10 years, he took an early retirement to join public service, where he has been contributing on the issues of water and environment at a national and regional level for the last 20 years. As a senator, he chaired the Parliamentary Committee on Water Resources, which gave consensus recommendations in 2005 to build Diamir Basha Dam. He was invited to serve as a federal minister in 3 transition governments and held multiple portfolios, including information. He's master in science from the University of Karachi and has authored a book, Insight into the Senate of Pakistan, a policy brief on Kabul River Basin, and multiple newspaper articles. In 2014, he co-founded Water Environment Forum, registered as a non-profit organization, and as a chairman, he engages key regional stakeholders in water and climate change dialogue and policy development. So thank you, sir, for joining us. And Nisar sir will be talking about challenges of lower Indus Basin, Indus Delta. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Irfan Jan. I don't know which point in my screen I should look so that my eyes are straight. Is this the right way to look at? Because this is, if it is placed straight, then I know where to, but placed properly, horizontally it is. So allow me if I'm not able to look at. I really must say thank you, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Pakistan. This is specifically for our friend Bob, who has joined us from Colorado. For all of us, it is morning. In fact, some of you may know that this topic is very close to my heart, since my roots are from the Indus Delta. My great-grandfather came from the Delta, from Thatta district. My mother comes from Thatta district, while I was born in Karachi. And I have been a regular visitor there in different form. I have also lived shortly there too. So it's really very close to my heart, but it has not received the needed attention. I must say this. And I have, in my presentation and my thought, you will see, I have no presentation, I just have the notes. I am going to use some number. Please, if you're using the numbers, then just research a little bit and then update it, because some of the numbers may not be, the sourcing may be different than what you will see in many others. So this is just the caution that I want you to have, when your research work, you must use the numbers from your own research. Ladies and gentlemen, mighty Indus River, you all know, flows from the mountains of China through India to Pakistan and falls into the Arabian Sea. The journey of about 3,000 kilometers provides millions of people the natural gift of water to sustain life, not only human life, but also other living beings and also the plants within the ecosystem. Indus Basin is believed to be shared in terms of water by Pakistan 47%, India 39%, China 8%, and Afghanistan 6%. So these are the four countries that use water. I want to recall some in order to build up for our discussion. You will recall that in 1960, the World Bank facilitated the division of Indus water between India and Pakistan by getting the Indus Water Treaty signed, which has survived. In fact, happily, I can say, and I say this to the Indian audiences when I'm there, that it has survived several wars between the two nations. However, the treaty needs to incorporate groundwater as well as environmental consideration, which is lacking there. but by the time it should be there. But it also should also, especially because of the climate change, we need to include these two environmental things. Now, I think in the treaty, there's one other thing that is needed is there's a beautiful dispute resolution mechanism with the International Court of Justice in Hague and many other things. However, what we need is a fast implementations of the decisions that the courts they take and that bilateral decisions taken. We need to go fast on it. Subsequent to that treaty, let me recall, there was a water apportionment accord. It's known as Water Apportionment Accord, which was signed between the 4 provinces of Pakistan for distribution of this Indus water, which in fact also requires upgrading and review and updating. Now, having said this, the Indus Basin is identified itself between the upper Indus Basin, which we have been. You ask me for all these years that we have been talking more of the upper Indus. I almost forgot that there's a lower Indus because many of the people forget there's a lower Indus Basin. So this upper Indus Basin is in the mountain ranges of these countries, while the lower Indus Basin is in the plains of Pakistan, flowing into the Arabian Sea. In Pakistan, the Indus enters in Gilgit-Baltistan, and from Gilgit-Baltistan goes through the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in some form and Punjab to Sindh. When I say Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, I mean we divert the waters to Kunar and then it comes back in the form of the Kabul River. The lower Indus Basin, in fact, culminates in Thatta district, as I mentioned, where it descends into the Arabian Sea alongside its delta. And its delta is, in fact, as you would know, is the home to the largest arid mangrove forest in the world. It is the largest arid mangrove forest of the world, and that's in Thatta, and it's closer to my home, and home to many birds, fishes, and the Indian dolphin. Not many people know Indian dolphins. Even at Sakkar, you'll find the blind dolphin sometimes, and these are rare species. Now, this Indus Delta is adjoining the mega city of Karachi. Karachi, which today is estimated 22 million inhabitants, and Karachi is roughly, always I have followed, it is about 10% of the population of Pakistan. Many a time it's known as mini Pakistan because you name it, any part of Pakistan, the people in Karachi live. And so these are the population. We have 2 ports, major ports, Port Qasim and Karachi Port Trust, and bulk of industries of Pakistan and the commercial hub of the Karachi with the banking and financial sector, with all the banks headquartered there, and the stock exchange and all the financial houses are in Karachi. Now, while the delta is so rich around in Karachi and itself, however, due to upstream storages, and I want Dr. Matthew to note this particular point, due to the upstream storages and diversion activities in the upper basin, there has been steady decline of water outflow to the lower basin. Not only lower basin, but to the Indus Delta and also to the Arabian Sea. And the sea requires a continuous flow of water so that a marine life could sustain, not the flood water, but the sustained inflow into the water. And this has created a huge water shortage problem in the lower Indus Basin, resulting in devastating, and I use the word very responsibly, that devastating economic, social, and ecological losses. And we can go into what kind of thing. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the various strengths that we have, such as Indus Water Treaty, which is a historic treaty, and many countries in the world talk about the Indus Water Treaty. And in fact, when they were talking about the treaty between Arabian countries, they invited me to come and talk about the Indus Water Treaty. And when they talk about the Far Eastern treaty, they talk about the industry. In spite of the fact that we have this treaty between the two countries, and we have the 1991 Water Accord between the four provinces, and several ACE, I call them ACE institutions in Pakistan, and I will just name few because there will be many. WAPDA is one. IRSA is Indus River System Authority, which distributes, manages the distribution, or sometimes mismanages, is IRSA, and the Pakistan Meteorological Department, PCSIR, PCRWR, and GCISC, and the center. And let me add also, the Center for Advanced Studies, this was earlier and still is named as US-Pakistan Center for Advanced Studies in Water. Because there are four centers. You will recall that there is one center in energy, one center of agriculture, one center of water. Water is, and all funded by the US. And now their funding is finished. Why I'm talking about this is because I'm on their board, so I know what is going on. And now it is the Mehran University in Jamshoro, which is managing it. So this, in spite of that, and various agriculture and other universities of Pakistan, and they are excellent institutions, I must say. And apart from this, we have global and regional institutions such as IUCN, WWF. I'm talking of those institutions which relate to the water and Indus Delta. And by the way, IUCN has done a tremendous job, a lot of work in the Delta, and a lot of work on mangroves. So has done the WWF, World Wildlife Fund, and IMI, as well as ISIMO. Now, ISIMO has not done any work in the lower basin, but there are plans to do this. And in addition to all of these institutions, please, I must also say, our recognized scientists, and we have a number of distinguished water experts, which I'm not going to name all of them, and hundreds of water projects. Now, despite all of this, the challenges remain to the detriment of the people of Pakistan. Now, on the one hand, you have got an excellent ecosystem, you have the forest, you have got a resource of water, and on the other hand, now the people are still struggling to benefit fully from these natural resources. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the challenges are many because of the complexity of water distribution, which is compounded by the climate change. Let's not forget this. So let me share the key ones with you, because once I share the challenges, then we can discuss about the solutions and how to really go forward in this. Because I believe that just talking about the challenges is not the only thing, because that's much easier. It's like criticizing, but saying, okay, this is not good. What do we do? And this is what I will come back to also. I think first one, I think, is implementation of the 2018 water policy that was given, and we need to implement it. And it's a comprehensive policy. It's all on the web. You can read it, you can review it, and it's we need to strengthen by improved coordination, because what we lack is the coordination between the provinces. And once we do this, I think this policy will come up well. And also, the policy, any policy, not only this policy, need to be updated to meet the emerging realities and situations. Because the world is not going to stay where 2018, but changes come, so you must update it. In view of the climate change, updating the policy is now mandatory, since any static situation, in my view, will bring the loss of opportunities. Second aspect is that we must have uniform institutional mechanism, which is also needed. And to my mind, the other day I was in a conference in Pakistan Engineering Council last week, and I heard there is a water commission in place in KP and Punjab, but the Sindh and Balochistan does not have. Now, if you do want to implement the policies, those two provinces must be pressed upon to have the water commission and have the uniform institutional mechanism. Third, I would say, which is very close to all of us, the convergence of science, technology, engineering. This need to be recognized by the policymaker. And this should be recognized, and then this could be helped incorporate into the policy. And without providing the necessary funding, I think it will be only policies and no implementation. Therefore, funding is very important for the science, technology, and also the engineering. Now, we know the fourth point I'd like to present to you is the projects. Projects must be well coordinated between the various stakeholders to avoid any duplication. I have seen, not only here, but when I was at IBM, I've seen from the head office point of view that resources, everybody's asking, but then there's a duplication of work. Therefore, if you coordinate, communicate, then I think we can avoid that. And we need to have, for increased yield, we need to have fast execution. And here I'm reminded of the time when I was chairman of the Pakistan Council of Pakistan Committee, Parliamentary Committee on Water Resources. And we submitted to the Senate of Pakistan a unanimous report of the four, in this committee, all the four provinces, senators, and four members of the National Assembly were there. So it was a parliament, and they recommended, and I can say that unanimously, because at that time, if you recall, in 2002, 3 years before that, technical feasibility of Basha the Amir Dam was completed. We got hold of it, and then we worked, and then in 2005, gentlemen, 2005, I remember submitted to the Senate and submitted and adopted and went to the Prime Minister of Pakistan that the Parliament unanimously agrees for implementation of the Basha Dam. Now, I just look back and I say, my God, so many governments have come, so many years have passed. Now, if this execution would have been then, for whatever reason, there are a number of reasons, and we can always discuss, and I'm happy to talk later. But then imagine if that time was not lost, the amount of money now Basha Damir will be spending will be huge. And the loss of opportunity is yet another. And the silting that is taking place in Terbela would not have been there. So upstream was developed for this thing. Anyway, so these are the projects, just one example of a key project that we could have expedited. The quality of water, in fact, is the fourth one I want to talk. We all know that it is compromised tremendously by the chemical discharge of the industrial, agriculture, and human waste into the water. In fact, industries are the major contributor. They are the culprits into this whole thing. Because remember, the industries, if fertilizer are being given to the agricultural land, then there should also be neutralization of the elements that are being given. So industries, they are discharging the effluents into the water system as well river. But I want to remind one thing to us, and perhaps when they read this and they hear this talk, that there is a public water system, you can do it. But remember the SDG goal number 14, which is to avoid impact on the life below the water. They're not only affecting us who are arsenic, we find the arsenic into it, we see a lot of diseases coming, but also we are affecting the life below the sea, which is this. And that is to save the marine life, fishing business, and any adverse impact on the commercial and the defense vessels. Now, as the chairman of the Defense Committee of Senate, we studied this area. I personally was one of the 3 committee members who studied this, the impact of pollution in Karachi. And you'll be surprised that naval vessels, the marine vessels, they were, because of the chemicals and other things, they were so affected that billions of rupees were impacted because of the nascent discharge of the chemicals into the sea. So this report, by the way, if anyone is interested, any mention I'm making, whether the parliamentary committee or defense, is all on my website, because I had kept it on the Senate, but some of the other Senate updated it and removed it. I knew it, so I preserved it. And you can see it in my personal website, which is under the reports. Anyway, but then there are many other reports. The sixth one is the country really faces is the water resource management. Now, that is the challenge because of the clean energy for sustainable development and efficient food production. Now, climate change brings in the additional challenges of GLOF. Professor, you know it, the GLOF in Gilgit-Baltistan, and everybody knows the lakes. Atabad Lake is the result of the GLOF, and also the floods, the seawater rise in Karachi, where you will recall in 2015, I think, because of the heat, because of climate change, the water level came, and thousands of people died also. And the degradation of the land, because I've seen the land myself, and I have helped during the times of the Senate to stop that inflow of the rising water into the agricultural land in the around the coastline. So these are some of the things. Now, but one of the other things we all have, and I've come to Peshawar for this, water, food, and energy nexus. I've been engaged in this for the last 7, 8 years, but I think it is not, it still is current, because water, energy, and food, this requires simultaneous focus on each. You cannot say we'll focus on water, everything will be. No, you need to focus on agriculture, which is food, and you need to focus on the energy. Pakistan with the Indus flow. Now, while we can do all this nexus, but the most important is for Pakistan is the population. Nobody talks about it. It is nothing sacrosanct. We must talk about it. Therefore, before I talk about the nexus, I'll say nexus is affected by the population. I'll give you some figures. And these figures are, when Pakistan was created in 1947, the population of the Pakistan, Western Pakistan, which is today's Pakistan, because East Pakistan did not have the Indus, so I just took the West Pakistan where the Indus was flowing. 34 million people were living. And what happens later in 1971? 58 million people were living there. So there was a steady rise into the population of the West Pakistan where the Indus is. And at the end of the century, it was 142 million, ladies and gentlemen. 142 million. And now you all know we stand as of today. I looked today this morning, the latest population number of Pakistan. Now, this is the same West Pakistan we talk about, because I'm comparing apples with apples. 229 million people. So imagine the 34 million people, water is being shared now by 229 million. No matter what you do, the resource will not be unlimited. So therefore, I think Pakistan has to focus on the population. And because of this, the Pakistan is categorized in the world ranking close to the water scarcity, with the level of per capita of water below 1,000. Some people report as 800, some 960, but I say below 1,000, which is a scarcity index. Now, this means that population management must be focused. And how can we do this? I don't think you need a magic this. Number one, there are a lot of foreign inward migration. Some are because of the Afghanistan, but many are illegal migration. And they are also causing trouble in terms of terrorism and others. And that need to be controlled. In addition to that, of course, the education to the people. Now, if you provide the education, and which I keep doing on a personal level as well as wherever I go, we need to do this, because the food and energy will depend on the population. So therefore, population is very important. But at the end of the day, water is central to this nexus, since 95% of our water we are using for agriculture, not very effectively, not efficiently. So efficiency is one, but the fact is that this is one important part of the nexus until it improves. Now, coming back to the delta, because of the delta sea level rising, impact on the degradation of the land, and also the opportunity, the migration is taking place. What we call internally displaced people are there from the Indus Delta. And this is very sad. I remember earlier people would move from, let's say, Shah Bandar to Keti Bandar. That's how my grandfather moved, because the water changes the course and people migrate. The question is, but still there was opportunity. But when there are no opportunities, people do. And I seen that hundreds and thousands of people have moved from, migrated, shifted from the delta. And in fact, hundreds of villages are barren. I can see this vestiges. You can see, you visit and say, which village was this? Ah, this was this village. No more people live there. So I think this is very important. Now, having said this, we must talk about the economy of the delta, which consists of agriculture and fishing. The delta is very rich. Even today, I've grown myself. Rice is grown there. There is oil seed is there. And also these are the crops, but the fruits, imagine, the banana was started only from this coastline. Now, of course, it has come all the way up to the country. But banana, think about the coconut, think about the palm oil, think about the guava and papaya. I grow papaya even here in my Islamabad house, because imagine, science has changed. So in addition to this, the mangrove dependent fish, they're very rich fish that are related to the mangrove dependent. They, along with the fish and the shrimps and crab, and these crabs are the mud crabs, they call it. They are all exported. Even today, they are exported. The quantity has changed, the quality is degraded, but still it's there to pick up. Is export earning for Pakistan. The delta used to have lost, I remember they used to have lost pastures of livestock grazing, but no more, no more, because there isn't land which people could leave it for the animals. Every inch they want to grow some crop or some fruits. It's also a common knowledge now. I'd like to talk about pricing. I think we have no pricing of water unless you really put the right price. Abhyana is a very small number. Frankly, it's a peanuts. It's like giving a very small donation. But water is not really priced. If it is not priced, and also it is not going to be, a proper system of measurement, then I think the, the situation remains very difficult. I remember one of the committees of the Senate, I don't remember which one it was. It wasn't one of my committees, but somewhere I was reading that they recommended that a telemetry system be installed right up to the farm level, so that you know that if we are installing, IRSA has installed some of the telemetry at various places, but only on the barrages, and no, you need to go right up to the farm level. And then you will know how much we are giving, and whatever is released, charge them according to it, because there should be nothing free. Free is never a solution. So I would say that this is the telemetry. Lastly, let me come to something which I've written on it also, by the way, is the losses, water losses and leakages. I mean, on the one hand, you have population, same water flowing. Of course, sometimes it flows in flood, sometimes not. And the other is that we have no measurement of the losses and leakages. Now, something like, let's say, 192 MAF comes into the system, and 118 or plus something is distributed. Where is the remaining one? Now, these are line losses. How? And there's also stealing into it. So therefore, I would say, I have thought, what are those? And I give you 5 eyes, because our eyes should be open to see the losses and I say 5 I's. And let me present to you. The first was is the inventory. What is our inventory? We have glaciers. This is now 7,250 glaciers in the mountain. We have rivers, mainly, of course, the Indus, Kabul, and Jhelum, and storages like dams, canals, distributors, and the losses in transmission of water. They must be kept as under our radar for water management. So this is number one. The second is institution. Now, institution, I'm not going to repeat because these must be given, and those where the teaching is going on and the research, they must be more effective also. And we must help them. Now, this is the one. Third is infrastructure of water, which is, imagine we have the Indus Basin irrigation system, the largest base irrigation system in the world. And I must say it's a marvel that a colonial country designed, of course, they designed it for them to use it. But the fact is that we are now the proud owners of the Indus irrigation system, and this is the largest. How much are we giving for its maintenance? I think very little. So I think irrigation system, the barrages, telemetry, this if any citizen comes, water information, every government, whether provincial or federal, must within a certain days must give that. Otherwise, they are breaking the laws. So I think the information must be there on the request, and this must be available to the media, because if you don't educate the media, what do you see? You will see the wrong figures being quoted. So give them figures so that they can report and analyze and give recommendations accordingly. Finally, I would say is the investment. It's all needed in all the above areas, particularly in the human resource development, which Dr. John, you are doing in terms of the university, the human resource development. At the university, they're doing their wonderful job, and that should continue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we need is, many times I say save Pakistan, but for this particular purpose, I will say save and strengthen Pakistan by conserving, this is in closing, I will say, by conserving, preserving, and developing the water resource. I believe, you may disagree, but I believe Pakistan does not have a problem of water. We have enough water. Pakistan has the problem management and governance of the water. I believe that Pakistan does not need any more policies than what we already have in addition to the current. We don't need it. But what we need is the execution of all of these policies. I believe that Pakistan does not need any more water laws, but implementation of the existing law. Just mentioning about the study we were doing on the defense committee for the pollution of the marine water. When we completed, we said, my God, these are the laws. So I said, gentlemen, we are missing on something. Where is our recommendation? We are the lawmaker. What? And you will be surprised, after putting our heads together, we said, really, there's no law we can recommend. So what is it? Implement the laws. And I say for water also, implement the laws, and it's enough to really get it through and strengthen Pakistan. Pakistan also does not need new water goals. As we all know, we were the first amongst the many countries to sign this SDG goal, Sustainable Development Goal. But what we really need is walk the talk. We talk a lot. I also keep talking, but I think we want to walk the talk. This is very important. And that's where, Matthew, you come in. In conclusion, I'll say, let's unite. And this is what I only said it last week when the On one hand, there was the chairman of the PEC, who is from one political party. Let me say which party. He was from Tehreek-e-Insaf. He is from Tehreek-e-Insaf MNA. And the other MNA was the Minister of Water, which was who is from the Pakistan People's Party. So I told them, they requested me to say a few words. I said, everything has been said, but I'll only say, please unite, irrespective of the political divide, to agree on a water charter. Because if you agree on a water charter, the economic charter that we all talk about will follow suit. But at least agree on something which is fundamental to our lives. So this is number one. Number two is take coordinated actions among all stakeholders. They must be coordinated. You can't be doing one, I'm doing something else. No. This is the only way to build a knowledge society for a coordinated planning, merit-based execution, and regular monitoring of our resources, that is water. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think I've spoken a little bit longer than I know. Yeah, a little bit longer. But I'm now open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a nice and detailed talk, and we are honored to have you for today's event. So now the floor is open for question answer. We'll see if we have any questions from the participant.
If nobody, then Dr. Machu will talk.
Okay, we have a question from Mukhtiar Ghani, one of organizer of the workshop. Sorry, the webinar. Yes, Mukhtiar Ghani.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. It was very nice and informative.
I can see his hand.
Sir, my question is about the water issue between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and any agreement or any treaty or any consensus on the Kabul River specifically, because both of the countries are wasting their resources unpurposely. For example, we are building storage dams on Chatral River just to block flow of water to Afghanistan, to pressurize them, and they are also building dams. Some dams are very unpurposely just to block the water. So, what is there any possibility to reach on a consensus of water divide, specifically along the Kabul River and its territory? It's not just a Kabul River, because we have almost 20 to 22 rivers, small rivers, from where water flow from Pakistan to Afghanistan. So if we include all these, and we can we reach to an agreement just like they did on the Helmand River with Afghanistan? Is there any possibility?
I think there is always a possibility, I will say. And let me submit to you that there is a very high possibility. And why my optimism is because of the one simple reason, that we both are joined together, not only by religion, not only by common geography, not only by common destiny or historic path, but by being the at the same time, Pakistan upstream to Afghanistan Kabul River, because we give water from Chitral to Kunar. And at the same time, we are also downstream because we receive the input from the Kabul River. But the Kabul River is not only Chitral River, because it comes, the Kabul River originates from the Central Asia. Now, that is the most important thing. Now, the question is, what do we have? And I can tell you, history, if you go back, there was the time when President Ashraf Ghani came to Pakistan, and he had agreed on the Kabul River MOUs. I'm told about 42 MOUs were signed. However, because of subsequent events that took place, and that's all international political, so let me spare you of that, they changed and they said, how can we go? If this is it, then this is it. So I think we were very close to doing that. And therefore, that means that there is already a groundwork which has taken place. And if you read my paper on the Kabul River that I have written, it does not have this consideration, but has number of other factors. Therefore, I remain optimistic. Now, what do we do? How do we do it? I think the only way is that we must identify projects which together between the two countries, and Matthew knows that in the upper Indus, I have always been proponent of saying, let's have a joint projects. And if we have projects of developing the skills together, and instead of they going to any other country, they could come to Pakistan, and Pakistan could work, and Pakistan has got the skills to put in place the dams. So we both countries have got everything in place. We need to put it. I can tell you that the last interaction that I had personally was when the foreign minister of Afghanistan came to an Institute of International Affairs where I'm also part of it. So I heard him, and the entire discussion was transit border, this trade, this issue, that issue. There was nobody ever raised. So I said, Mr. Honorable Minister, I got one question. Then I presented this Kabul exactly in the form that you presented. And, I was so pleased. Politician normally, they say, I know it. First is that you see the eyes and you could see that the man was genuinely interested to listen. Because when we speak in English, although they respond in Pashto, but they understand it. So he was understanding it. And immediately he said, I must say that this is an extremely valid point. We did not take this into our discussions while I was here, but he told somebody that as soon as I go back, he was his probably staff special assistant, that when we go back, we must take it up. Now, the question is that these things, they really is so difficult to make it, but when the opportunity comes, grab it and do it. So I think in this, you can be responsible, you can accelerate, I can, any one of us, where there's an engagement with the Afghan people, whatever level, universities, we must do this. And I think one day it will come because it's a need base. Nobody can survive without each other. And therefore, I think that will happen. But it's at this point in time, it's a little bit difficult because we've gone into first sorting out some of the other thing. Once it is done, but we were very close to it, I must say. That is the pity part of it. So there is positive, we have grounds, we have work done. And I think like World Bank played a role at that time, international role. I think if that is also comes into the play, I think that will be very helpful. Because let's say if you want to put up a project, say, okay, this project will be done together jointly by Pakistan and in Afghanistan. Because if I could go to Afghanistan on a meeting, why can't anybody else come? And by the way, the Afghan people keep coming here. It is their second home. In fact, many of them were born here. So I'm very positive. I hope I've answered to some extent.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we have another question from Bob. Bob, you can ask your question.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. And I'd like to pick up on your ancestral origins and your roots in the Indus Delta. And I think that one of the great challenges, both economically and ecologically, of course, is the flow of the water all the way to the Arabian Sea. And the principal challenge with the mega city of Karachi, as you've mentioned, with so many millions of people living in a situation where their water supply is maybe in question. And my question really is really more almost strategic about how can water supplies be improved or new water supplies found so as to keep the city of Karachi in a sustainable situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I think I would say that in addition to what I'm going to say, there's one other aspect which I would like to present now before I forget that. Is also remember the conversion of the saline water into the drinkable water. Singapore has done it. The Israelis have done it. Many countries have done it. So the technology is there. The resources need to be allocated. And by the way, there was also a project in Karachi during the time. I say our government because I was their senator. I was not in the government at that time, but was put in for creation of the energy from the seawater. And I think that energy can be created to also convert the saline into the sweet water. This is one aspect where international cooperation can come in. But back to our own is, I think once we have the telemetry installed all along the route of the Indus from upper basin within the Pakistan, I think I can only talk about Pakistan. As it enters from India, that is where we install and all the major points. And then finally at Sakhar Barrage. Now, Sakhar Barrage to me is a point from where truly the water can be misdirected, misused, or even theft can take place. And so therefore, there the water need to be measured. And then wherever the canals are going and wherever the flow of the water is going, the measurement be there, it is transparently. So there is a system of transparent installation of telemetry. It's available. Then it goes to the farmland, and the farmlands must be priced for it. And because if you pay for it, then you will use the water. I will not throw my half bottle of Nestle water because I paid for it. I'll keep finishing it until I finish that. But that's not the issue. So I think, and the industries must also be held responsible. Industries must be told that if you throw the water, there should be a high penalty. By the way, and penalties are so small that I tell you, if I'm an industry, I'll say, give the penalty and let's get on with it if I'm not human. But so I think the penalties must be increased. Water measurement should be there at every stage in the upper Indus Basin as well as the lower Indus Basin. And the delta, by the way, Bob, if you come to the delta, believe me, I've yet to see in my life the beautiful barren beaches. And I always knew the brown beaches. But there in delta, inside, in the mangroves, I saw the white beaches. Now, so you can really imagine if you don't give them water, the water keeps receding, delta keeps going. So I think several, which in the, by the way, I can send the notes if anybody wants it of this presentation that I made. And these somewhere or the other I mentioned, but I will be open to discussion specifically on this point. But some of the pointers I've already given. I hope, Bob, I've answered your question.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I think that your point about desalination is very important. And I visited Karachi maybe 3 years ago, and I think there is a desalination plant, but it is not active. So the question to you might be, what are some of the obstacles to putting that desalination plant into a workable order? And is there a possibility that that industry of desalinating the seawater can be implemented in Karachi?
It can be, yes, it need to be. I think what we need is a focus of the decision maker, the policy maker, and that can come sometime by the citizens putting pressure. And this is where the awareness, if you raise, for example, if you go to public speaking and you are addressing the press is also there. Today we don't have, but if we have it and we mention this, I think that gets flashed. And then, by the way, if any small item in the newspaper comes in any newspaper, then it is on the floor of the assembly, you can raise it, and the government of the time has to respond to it. So I think these are some of the actions we need to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
I don't
we have.
need to.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. We have another question from Matthias. So you can please ask your question.
Yes, I think just a very, very clear compliment to this presentation. It really summarized all the problems. You mentioned it in a very, very good way. And I remember statements like this at our ISIMOD meetings in Kathmandu or so. It was really very good. My problem is that most of the facts you mentioned and you outlined are known for almost decades now. Many are just not new. You know, the population growth, the distribution of the resources, the problems between the districts, countries, and so on. My question, and you also mentioned it, how can we achieve a long-term responsibility, not just for one government, but for all the governments following each other? You know, I have many times the impression there's a new government, so forget what the previous government has done, and so on. It's absolutely necessary, because I'm afraid, looking from outside, that Pakistan runs in a real disaster, you know, which creates social problems, migration all over the world, and so on. It must be solved. And I simply wonder, you mentioned a few other cases. What could Pakistan or could we learn from other similar situations? Pakistan is not the only country which has to overcome problems like this. We know it from the United States, from, I don't know, Australia, from other places. How did they solve it? Did they solve it? Maybe not. I don't. This has to be found out. But how is the way? Should be some pressure also from outside, from United Nations or from World Bank, which says either you do it or we stop the support or something like this. And then within the Pakistan society, I think it must be created sensibility of these social discrepancies. I have been many times in Islamabad, where I saw the local fight of individuals for water. They pump it from down, bring it up. The neighbor has no water anymore, and so on. There, a social responsibility has to be created by education in school, by science, by, you mentioned it, media, and so on, to focus on a long-term responsibility. Otherwise, I'm a little bit worried that Pakistan will really, really face almost unsolvable problems, you know. It's just a comment, but once more, it was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthews. I think you have not only pointed out, but you also, in your deliberation, you also suggested some of the ways. So I think we need to pick those up. And I will say, wherever each one of us is in any meeting where the funding agencies are there, I think we should impress upon them to focus on creating fundamentally the awareness and education. And I am an old man, but I'm a great believer in starting this entire thing from the schools and colleges. Just think about what happened in Glasgow. While inside the COP26 or whatever that was, there was meeting going on, and the pressure from outside of the youth was so much that they say, we don't accept your recommendation. Now what happened? And I can tell you, there was changes inside, and there was change of even their deliberation. And therefore, I would say that if there is any funding that need to be given, is creating, you and I can be the guide, we can be guiding the young people about the data, about the information. But I think it is there organized, because remember, this is also twofold. Think about what today the youth is involved. Youth is involved today in nothing but looking at this and all the wrong WhatsApp messages and everything, which is wrong. Just think about it. In this, we have 2 or 3 groups of WhatsApp where the information is posted. But I think it has to be juicy so that people could be attracted. Sometimes I get very nice messages. I think somebody need to fund it to address the youth and create a youth bodies, not for politics, not for party politics, but for water politics, if they want to talk about it. It is what is not politics, what is a survival. I think if you ask me what is one thing, Nisar, you would like to do, and believe me, I have my plans to tell that the first thing is that ask the youth, guide them to do it, and I tell you, once they speak, we all listen to them. But they don't have to be violent. I've seen in Korea, in Seoul, once I was there, on one side was the road was blocked. What was happening on the other side? They were sitting and quietly and protesting for a political reason. But here the water could be there. And this has to be sustained, not on a water day, not on an environment day. This is what we do. If we only issue statements on the water day, environment day, climate change day, no. Days are only to remind what you have done. But if you don't do anything, what is there to be reminded? So I would say that is the first thing we need to do. That's the first project that people need to fund. The agencies, the World Bank and others must fund is the creating awareness within the youth from schools to the, and by the way, it's not easy, because if think of a message, you and I speak in English. Do you think a common man in Pakistan understands English? No. So you need to have it in Urdu. Now, if you say Urdu, there are many areas in Sindh and Balochistan and frontier and in Punjab where they will only understand in their language. So go to that level. So you need translation. So there's a huge work. It's not something small. It's a huge work, but that need to be done. I would say I will give that as a very high priority. And once they talk, then the media talk. When the media talk, the parliament say, hey, what's happening? And then remember, you want to vote, you'll only get a vote if you do this for me. You know, it's a linked up situation, but it is
Absolutely.
a very positive thing. We can go on, we'll discuss. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Qasim.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to profusely thank you for your wonderful talk. You accepted my invitation and ever grateful. Now I come to the point, and that it's not a question to be asked, it is a suggestion or a common observation that unfortunately in Pakistan, the politicians, the government officers, even the scientists keep on talking that we are wasting too much water by allowing it to drain into the Arabian Sea. I think this is a misconception. People need to be informed that the Delta region needs a minimum amount of water, and we should actually stop thinking negatively that we are wasting water. This is, I think, we should talk about it. I think otherwise it would ultimately be a disaster of another nature if we reduce the quantity of water from that which is required by the minimum. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Qasim Jan. I think, thank you for appreciating what I said, but I think you have really brought in a very important point, that people, because of lack of information, they politicize. When somebody says in the Delta, I need water, they say, you're wasting. And I've seen some very sensible senior leaders saying, we don't have water to drink and you want to throw it in the Arabian Sea, without realizing that by putting the water there, you are earning the exports of the fishes. You are also avoiding the deterioration of the land. You are helping the climate and so on. Toward this, I can only say I did something for which some of the things you do and you say, I'm happy about that, I did. In the committee that Pakistan this parliamentary committee, we said there should be environmental studies of the delta should be done at of the lower Indus Basin and the basin. Total one lower and upper should be done. The other day I was in one place and I said, well, we can always say we did this, but I don't even know what happened to that recommendation. And I was so pleased that the two studies were done. The environmental studies were done and done to establish and the figures and everything. So you see, you do something, you may move away and onward to some other responsibility, but those who are there, they don't communicate. They're saying, okay, if only somebody at that time could have sent from WAPDA or whatever agency was done, that Mr. Senator Memon, we have done this, you will be pleased that your recommendation while you are not there, we have done. Can you imagine how happy I would have been? I would have been motivated, and perhaps I would have written, I would have appreciated, and in many other places I would have shared. So I think you're very right. We must remove this myth of wastage, and it is there. And instead, we must really stop the wastages of this. I was very happy one day I went to Faisalabad, and there was some time between the university talk and there was Juma. So went to a mosque. Somebody said, we go to this mosque. Where I went, I said, look, let me do evaluation. And they said, wazu udhar chahiye. And I said, the guy was standing and you know what he was holding? If you want to go and do wazu, he was giving you 1 liter bottle of water. My God, 1 liter? How will I do? Because one is not used to. You are used to the tap water while you're doing, and it's flowing uselessly. And I did it, and you'll be surprised I could do it in half the bottle also. So these are smaller states, people in their small places, isolated, have done it. But if we share, we can do it. I also think one of the things is that in the houses, if you remember, we have the tape and you open it while you're washing, you're picking something, the water is flowing. Honestly, I observe this and I keep telling everybody here that the flow of the water should be so limited. Sometimes the family members would say, water is not flowing, so they put a the motor to start the flow faster. I'm saying I want to put something to slow down the water rather than because it's the same thing. If same in a small water you can do it. So I think these are personal habits we should inculcate and we should spread also. And this will come by the same awareness education methods, because that is where the project will say these are good examples. What they say, good practices. So you teach them in the childhood. Yeah, I'll tell you something. One of my grandsons, he was there, and I would always see him that he walks out of his room, the lights are open, the AC is open. I said, this is not on. This is really wasteful thing. So one day I said, come, Murtaza. He said, yes, Nana, what can I do for you? I said, you want to help me something? He said, yes. I said, do you have a 10 rupee note? He says, of course. So he went and picked up a 10 rupee note. Now, Bob, this 10 rupee today is only 2 cents or something. Okay. But okay, 10 rupee note. So he brought it. And lo and behold, I just quickly went and started to tear it up. I tore it into 100 pieces. He said, Nana, what are you doing? What has happened? I said, look, what did I do? Did I do anything wrong? He said, of course, you wasted the money. This was 10 rupee note. You tore it open. I can't even put it together now. Oh, I said, that's very good, very good. So we should not waste the money. He said, yes. Oh, I said, by the way, this electricity, how much it costs? Do you know this? And he said, I got the message. He just said, I got the message. From that day onward, he was coming out of the room, putting off things and putting on and off whatever the curse. I think, I always laugh at him. I said, are you doing it in London while you are living there now? He said, well, Nana, I forget sometime, but I think I should be reminded sometime. So it's a constant effort. It's not one-off thing. It's a continuous effort. So, Bob, I'm sorry to give very small example, but these are the small examples which make the difference.
Okay.
I lived in Kuwait where the gas used to be by cylinder. But think about it. Whole of Pakistan is gas by the pipeline. Kuwait, a rich petroleum country, country has the cylinder, because when you bring the cylinder, you will realize what is the cost of it. It's a nation, it's a city state, and yet they have cylinder, and we have this millions of people being supplied wastefully. So I think these are things, fundamental changes we'll have to bring. Wherever, I don't say that God gives us the opportunity at any place, whatever we can do there is worth it. Yes, I
Okay.
know there is impatient.
Okay. Now, sir, we have a question from Mohsin. Mohsin, kindly please introduce yourself briefly, and then you can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sayyid Mohsen Raza and I am basically a MS degree from Qaid Azam University.
Okay.
I done my thesis work on basically the structural and geological mapping reconnaissance basis.
Okay.
So first of all, I pay my tribute that to all those who raise this critical issue of water scarcity in Pakistan. And it's my pleasure to see Sir Nisar Memon over. So my question is, sir, you said Pakistan doesn't have any problem of water, and we have just to follow the Pakistan Water Charter. So, what emergency we put over here, and which departments? I think departments are here like NDMA. I have interaction with that department. So, where we are lacking, it's governance issue or something like funding, as you are asking from the Mathis. It's the funding issue. Thank you.
I think the problem that we have, because I've been in the government, the problem is that they come in for a short period, and shorter than even 5 years, you can imagine. To me, 4 or 5 years, you can at least plan. But if you come for a year, what is your priority? Your priority is not to really solve the long-term issues, but to fix the short-term issues. Therefore, while the short-term issues have to be there, the people at the helm of the affair, which in my view is now nobody but Prime Minister of Pakistan, whichever time we choose, Prime Minister of Pakistan can decide that we will have short-term issues will be addressed by this team, long-term will be issued by it. And I think this is where the Charter of Economy they are talking about. I therefore talked about the Charter of Water. So, Mohsen, we need to talk about the Water Charter for Pakistan, which is a long-drawn thing. That means that it will talk about the 2030, it will talk about where will we be. To me, the target is where will Pakistan be, not at the 75. Today we are going at the 75 years old. What will be at the age of 2047? That is the target, and then you come down and develop. Now, this may take a longer time. This will require a study, but it has to be not only by the government, it has to be the parliament. Why I say parliament is because parliament has got government and opposition, all the political parties, and then they present it to the people, and people like businessmen and other, they give opinions. And once you seal, sign, I think that's the end of the story. No government by law can change that. And this is what they normally do. For example, they did that for 18th Amendment. There was a charter whereby they said Charter of Democracy or whatever, and that there will be 18th Amendment. They did it, and now that remains. Now, having said the 18th Amendment, they talked about the 18th Amendment, but what is the implementation of 18th Amendment? Number of things were left out. How the HEC will be, how the universities, how the water distribution and all that, that remain. So I would say, Mohsen, what we really need is to emphasize to the government in time, not only in federal government, but also in the provincial government, that because they are the ones who get the vote. And also now that as of today, we are in the local government. So issues can be raised there that, gentlemen, you are asking for a vote. What is your position on this? And then make it announce it by a small team that, well, we have done this, and what is it? So start from the even from the lower end, because you may not be able to, and I may not be able to go to the prime minister, but at least we can go to the local government and then the provincial and then make it known. And therefore, I think short term, long term must go. You can't say I will only work for the long term and forget about it. No, these things have to, short term has to be, later on must be part of the long term. So this is what can be done. It is being done in some way or the other. I heard the present Prime Minister talking about saying that we are doing something about the LNG or something in a manner that it will solve the problems of tomorrow also, and nobody will be able to change those. Fine, very good. But then discuss with everybody. This is important. You can't, people must have ownership. Ownership comes when you're part of it. And the part of it is when you discuss it from the lower to the higher. And it's a constant thing. Okay, Mohsen, I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Okay, we have another question from Muhammad Zishan. Muhammad Zishan, kindly
Mohammed?
introduce yourself. Muhammad Zishan.
Thank you, Professor. I am Dr. Muhammad Zishan Ali, working as a research fellow in International Islamic University. I was also there in PEC conference seminar, which was about groundwater last week, and I have seen some things which were because different stakeholders were called there, and they were giving a presentation there. I have seen a lot of duplications in the irrigation department from the 4 provinces. Irrigation departments were called, and the way forward for all the 4 provinces were almost same. We need to reduce the pumping, and we need to have a high recharge, so those type of things. And the different stakeholders like PCRWR and also some other working there, how we can reduce the duplication of work. One point is that how we can reduce, because over there we were also talking about that we need to reduce the duplication, but as same after the seminar, there is no way to how we can communicate with one another. Like Sparco is working their own, irrigation department is working their own, and also the some private organization like donors of ADB, and also the PCRWR is working. So how we can reduce the duplication of work, and also Planning Commission was there, some representation from Planning Commission. So is there any possibility, because you're a senior member of that organizations, so as we can make the SDI system, that special database infrastructure, where we can, for example, if we want to make some funding, so how, if we want to give us some funding to the university professors or some organization, is there any duplication, we need to make that sure that there is no duplication. One of the member from Planning Commission were asked that we are taking some proposals, and also we are taking the duplication certificate, but how we can know that this work is not duplicated before by some other donor or some other worker. Secondly, like Professor Matthews asked about the awareness, that is one of the point as well, that we are talking, being a scientist or being a worker in the organization, we are talking about those things that we need to modify those type of things, and we need to make some policies. How we can convey this message to the layman who is using that groundwater, or who is using much more water as compared to a worker who is sitting in his office. So that is one of the way, that is one of the gap between the worker, the policy maker, and also the layman who is using that groundwater specifically. So how we can reduce, or how we can minimize that gap between the 2 points. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Did you say Dr. Muhammad Arsalan?
Dr. Muhammad Zishan.
Zishan.
Zishan, okay. Okay, Dr. Zishan, thank you very much. I think I'm very happy there's somebody, and you remember what I said there, and you saw how the
Yes.
acknowledgement was there by Minister himself. You noticed that, okay? So
Yes.
that's one. I think in terms of duplication, is not a very difficult thing. It does not start after the event. It starts before the event. If you ask me, which I'm going to discuss when I meet the friends there who invited me, that it is before that this meeting was as if we were all waiting for the minister to come. That's not the way it is.
Yep.
Minister
Exactly.
can come and be, in fact, interested to hear what we're saying, not we interested to hear him. Number one. I think it's the planning of the event. In my view, there was a bit of a problem with the timing allocated to every presenter. It was not justice to you if I give you 5 10 minutes and say, come on, hurry up, hurry up. No. First of all, I think the whole program was not of one day. It was too ambitious. It should have been 2 to 3 days. Okay. So that is where the duplication, how you will avoid. And now let me come to tell you how we will avoid it. If there was a plan, who are going to be speaking, and then you put those groups together and say, okay, sit down together. Balochistan, Frontier, and KPK, and Sindh and Punjab sit together. And then after that, you all come together and give one presentation, not their individual presentation. This is what we do in many. Matthews knows about it. In any international, we just don't have presentations after presentation. It can be very irresponsible. So that is pre-event. You have to plan. So when you plan anything, Dr. Zishan, for in your job, anything, please get the presentation. First is that allocation of subjects, and then say what you're going to speak. So people do not go here and there. And then put them 5 to 10 minutes short presentation, and the group goes in a session and then comes together a joint presentation. It is not for you and me to say how will we avoid. They will say, okay, we have this, I have this expertise, I will do this part in Punjab, I will do this part in Sindh, this I will do in KP, and this I'll do in Balochistan. That's where in the group they will come together. So I think, please remember, if you really want meetings to be effective, seminars or workshop, make it a workshop type of event. Okay, it's not in Farsi they say Nishistan Guftan Bakhastan. That event was like Nishistan Guftan Bakhastan. You sit, you talk, and you disperse. No, it has to be. Then you agree on this. I'm sure that is what they have done, that there will be. And I will talk to my friends there that now please avoid this duplication. And you can also write that we need to have these kinds of committees which should come together and in a given time, not committees meeting after 20 years, immediately after that. So I think this is one thing is that there. The second important thing is, I think, which can be funded is have the portal of the projects. If you have a project, let's say on groundwater, and I have been given by, let's say I'm given by World Bank, you're given by the Asian Development Bank, and this portal has got all the various kind of projects onto the portal. I think if you have a portal, everybody can see and say, hey, we already have a project like this. Why do you want me to fund you? So the funding will not go to those for duplication. So this is number two. And number three, of course, is the event-based planning after that. I think in terms of the awareness, I think I've already talked a lot, and those are the things if we can, organizers can put together the ideas that came in, and I think Nazir can probably put in some of the questions asked and the responses came, and what are the common understanding, then I think that will be the right thing. Okay, so Zishan, that is what my take is on that.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for spending your precious time. Actually, we have only 5 minutes to go to. This meeting will be end automatically, so we have to conclude this session. I will request all of the participants to turn on their cameras for a group photo, and then we have to end this session.
Dr. Ashraf is also here now.